This July, Thomas Rabe, chairman of the John Rabe Communication Center, was granted the Friendship Envoy Award at the second Orchid Awards in Beijing for promoting cultural understanding and friendship between China and Germany. 88 years ago, his grandfather, John Rabe, a German businessman stationed in Nanjing in 1937, managed to shelter and save 250,000 Chinese civilians from atrocities committed by Japanese invading forces during one of the darkest moments in human history, known as the Nanjing Massacre. In this podcast, Thomas Rabe shares with us the Rabe family's special bonds with China, which spans over a century and 4 generations. Thomas Rabe, a German doctor and chairman of the John Rabe Communication Center, received the Friendship Envoy Award at the second Orchid Awards in Beijing. The awards recognize non-Chinese individuals or organizations for outstanding contributions to promoting exchanges and mutual learning among civilizations. This is not the first time Thomas has won such an honor. A few years earlier, he was granted the prestigious Chinese Government Friendship Award, the highest honor to commend foreign nationals who have made outstanding contributions to China's modernization drive. Thomas is glad he and his family's peace and humanitarian efforts have been well recognized.
It shows here our close relationship between my family and finally in my person here, that it's accepted what we are doing. It's a collaboration and bond here between 4 generations. My grandfather, starting in 1908 here, my father born in 1917 in Beijing. Finally, me. I never met my grandfather because he died 1 year before I was born. And now our son here is also interested here in collaboration here and continuing the communication centers.
Thomas was referring to the John Rabe Communication Center he heads, which has 6 locations worldwide, including Nanjing, China, and Heidelberg in Germany. The purpose of it is to inspire people with the extraordinary humanitarian legacy of John Rabe, Thomas's grandfather, who is known as the Good Man of Nanking and the Oscar Schindler of China for his role in protecting Chinese civilians during the Nanjing Massacre. It also wants to shed more light on that appalling episode of history and promote peace and friendship among peoples.
The idea of the communication center is historical storage here, spreading information, what happened there in the past here, the contact with Chinese researchers here and government publications, conferences here, and on the other time, medical collaboration with the Beijing Capital University Professor Ruan Xinyang in the field of medicine.
The Rabe family's bonds with China began with John Rabe, Thomas's grandfather. John was a German businessman who came to China in 1908. He was overseeing Siemens operations in China in 1937 in the then capital Nanking, or Nanjing as it is today called, when the darkest chapter in human history unraveled, known as the Nanjing Massacre or the Rape of Nanking. During the Chinese people's war of resistance against Japanese aggression, which began in 1931 and lasted for 14 years, the Japanese invading forces seized Nanjing on December 13, 1937. In the ensuing 6 weeks, they engaged in mass killings, rapes, and the ravaging of Chinese citizens. The number of Chinese people killed in the massacre was estimated to be more than 300,000. When Japanese troops entered Nanjing, Rabe and a small group of dedicated foreign nationals set up a safety zone in the city, offering refuge to the civilians. Rabe's own residence alone sheltered over 650 Chinese. Together, the safety zone saved over 250,000 Chinese civilians from Japanese atrocities between 1937 and 1938. John was called the Good Man of Nanking by the Chinese he saved. He also kept a diary where he recorded the unspeakable horrors in Nanjing during the massacre. A diary entry on Christmas Eve of 1937 reveals his feelings on what was going on around him. Thomas remembers this diary entry well.
I have the book with me here, what he's writing at the 24th of December. He was talking about the friends. He brought a Christmas tree here and some gifts here. He was going out of the house and was horrible, shocked here by all the dead people he has seen outside. And finally he said, the best Christmas gift for me was that I could save the life of more than 600 people.
In 1996, John Rabe's diary was made public by the Rabe family and appalled the world. His wartime diary was later published in German and English, with the English version titled as The Good Man of Nanjing, The Diaries of John Rabe. Thomas Rabe shares why his family wanted to make the diary public.
When I became older, my father had the responsibility. He promised my grandfather to make the diaries accessible to the public, and he was medical doctor and had no time. At this time I had the feeling I could do it. So I took over the responsibility and started here to read the diaries here, to make contact after my grand-aunt here, Ursula Reinhardt, already published here, or showed the books in Nanjing, Beijing, in Tokyo and in New York. I was very happy to hand over the book here to the Chinese State Archives.
In 2016 and 2017, Thomas donated the original manuscripts of his grandfather's Nanjing diaries to China. These remain one of the most comprehensive historical records of that atrocious chapter of human history. John Rabe left China and returned to Germany in 1938.
My grandfather did not leave the country by his own decision here. Even if I die, he wrote here in this sentence. But it was in December here and January. But in February he was forced to go home.
In 1950, John Rabe passed away in West Berlin, aged 68. Thomas didn't know that his grandfather was an Oskar Schindler kind of figure until very late, when he was grown up. But when he was little, he did learn quite a lot about China from his own father, who was born in Beijing and spent some years of his childhood in China.
I realized what happened in Nanjing, and I was at the end of my medical studies when I looked at the Nanjing diaries. I never met my grandfather because he died in 5th of January 1950. My father told me stories how to catch a snake. It's very important. You have to have a stick here, put it at the head here. He told me all the time, if you have shoes outside of the house, you have to check if somebody's in here, if somebody's home. The scorpion here in China. He talked about how to protect a house against ants here, termites here. What to do if there's a sandstorm here from the Gobi Desert. Stories like this.
Thomas said he was often told such children's stories that his father had learnt during his days in China. But the family rarely talked about wars. World War II left a deep scar on the family.
The house of my father in Munich, when he was studying medicine, was completely bombed. He said, I don't have any pencil here left. Everything was destroyed. The house where my grandfather lived here in Berlin was bombed, and all the stuff here bring home here from China here survived in the basement. And the house of the parents of my mother here has been bombed, so my family did not like to talk about war.
Thomas later visited John Rabe's old residence in Nanjing, which has become a Rabe memorial. He also met one of the survivors of the Nanjing Massacre, who was only a little girl when saved and admitted into the safety zone. It was a rather emotional and powerful moment for Thomas.
I can show you a picture between this lady here and my wife here. This is very emotional. He said, without my family, I would not be here.
The actions of John Rabe are a story of courage and friendship, and how humanitarian spirit could shine over atrocities at critical moments of history. It exemplifies how compassion, righteousness, and friendship can make ordinary people unthinkably brave. Such humanitarianism is soul-touching and earned John Rabe lasting respect.
I was a little bit shy. I said, what have I done here like him? And I said, everybody must think about if you would be able here to do the same here in this situation here. And this is not a simple question. To discuss it with the families, he said you could be killed here by staying there. It was a big responsibility what my grandfather had done. And we are very proud that he did it.
To promote John Rabe's humanitarian spirit, Thomas Rabe set up the first John Rabe Communication Center in Heidelberg, Germany in 2002. 5 other centers can be found in China, Spain, and Romania. These centers serve as educational hubs and symbols of peace. They exhibit replicas of John Rabe's Nanjing diaries and historical records, offering visitors a glimpse into history. Thomas also published a book, Rabe and China, which documents 4 generations of Rabe family's connection to China over a course of more than 117 years.
We compiled in this special book here, which we publish now, Rabe and China. These are all the information you need about the life of my grandfather here and what he did here and what the next generation was doing.
Thomas hopes readers can engage with that part of history and be inspired by his grandfather's humanitarian spirit, compassion, courage, and his desire for peace. How did Chinese people remember that chapter of history and John Rabe? Dr. Ruan Xiangyan is a Chinese gynecologist whose department organizes many professional exchanges with their German peers, including Thomas Rabe. She was also the chief translator for the book Rabe and China.
I wanted to, as a volunteer, to translate this book because I am moved by Rabe's family, especially Rabe's grandfather, their dedication to China. They saved so many Chinese people. I look at the movie several times. Every time I moved to tears. So this is why I would like to help Professor Thomas Rabe to translate the book. I think for Chinese people who helped us, we never forget.
We now take a short break, but when we come back, Thomas Rabe shares with us more stories about the Rabe family's ties with the Chinese people. You're listening to Footprints. The Rabe family's bonds with China continued long after John's passing away, as does John Rabe's legacy. John Rabe lived in China for about 30 years. In his diary, he did not just write about the war, He also noted his observations and fascination with Chinese local culture, as well as his adventures in different parts of China, including Beijing and nearby Tianjin City. He recorded old Chinese buildings and the Chinese society with his camera. According to Thomas, this part of John Rabe's diary was later compiled into different book titles by Chinese researchers.
We have 4 or 5 books here, Beijing with My Eyes. One is on the table here in German, English and Chinese. And Professor Liang Li, he was professor of modern Chinese history, is also here from the Beijing University here. He compiled this observation of my grandfather in 1908 here, at the time when last emperors died here. And it's very interesting here to see the different footsteps of my grandfather.
And Thomas's endeavor extends far beyond preserving the memory of his grandfather. As we've heard, Thomas Rabe is a renowned gynecologist at Heidelberg University Hospital in Germany. Apart from his work with the John Rabe Communication Center, he also tries to actively bridge the exchanges and cooperation between German and Chinese medical professionals. He joined the international team of specialists at Beijing Obstetrics and Gynecology Hospital in 2013, sharing his over 40 years of medical expertise with his Chinese counterparts. The cooperation between Thomas, his German peers, together with the team headed by Dr. Ruan Xiangyan from the Beijing Obstetrics and Gynecology Hospital, have rendered multiple breakthroughs in the field of gynecological endocrinology and reproductive medicine.
Said, okay, let's work together. We organized conferences, and this exchange here is very effective here. And we invited a lot of friends worldwide here to come to teach here, and now we are in connection here with video messages here or onward consulting.
Together, they have also published medical textbooks in the Chinese language on recent advances in gynecology and obstetrics. Since his first visit to China in 2006, Thomas has traveled many times to China for various exchanges. Every time he visits the country, he finds something new in China.
Everything is so well organized. If you come to the airport here, everything is clean. People are behaving perfectly here. You have WeChat here, and you can transfer a huge amount of videos here and publications with WeChat here. It's perfect here. You can look at other parts of international intelligence here for diagnostic and medicine, analyzing ultrasound, analyzing radio X-rays, and analyzing magnetic resonance here. You can look here at your train net here and your metro net. You have high-speed trains here. You have the longest bridges here. You have moon rocket program here with a space shuttle here.
As John Rabe's family, Thomas wants to continue to bridge the friendship between Chinese and German peoples. He said his son also takes an interest in the John Rabe Communication Center's future course, apart from his other work engagements.
Because the friendship here is lasting very long between Germany and China. If you look at Qingdao beer, I think here, it's a German beer here, which has been produced here. Yesterday I had 2 bottles here. We have a long-lasting collaboration, and a lot of German companies are here. Mercedes, Audi, VW here, and so on here. So we must have a close collaboration here. We want friendly relationship between our country.
With that, we conclude this episode of Footprints. If you are interested in learning more incredible stories of individuals who have left their prints in China, key in Footprints, and you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Bob Jones. Bye for now.
Amen.